Hello, listeners. Welcome to the On Track video cast this morning. Well, it's morning when we're doing this anyways, when we're doing our recording. Today, I'm really excited to introduce somebody that I have been listening to all over all of my favorite podcasts. She has her own podcast as well. Her name is Elle Russ. She is a writer, a certified Primal health coach, host of the Primal.
Hey, sorry to interrupt you. It's Russ.
Oh, Russ, Elle Russ.
It's Elle Russ. So Russ like bus. So sorry. I didn't know if you wanted to redo that.
I have the worst luck with that. Like, I don't know what it is. I always pick these people that have kind of odd last names, and then I always seem to mess them up.
That's okay. You're not the first one to have done that. I just wanted to stop you before you finish that intro. Sorry, go ahead. Wanted to redo it.
So, and she's the host of the Primal Blueprint podcast, and she wrote the book, The Paleo Thyroid Solution, which is amazing. So, welcome, Elle Russ. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Thanks so much for having me. I apologize. There's a dog barking in the background. My neighbor's German Shepherd, I think, is acting up, but hopefully that'll go away in a minute.
No problem. I have a brand new puppy, and so I made sure I walked her, and she's now sitting beside me, and I'm just praying that she's not going to start barking or doing something funny. So, we could have some dogs in the background. That's okay. So tell us a little bit of your background. First of all, of course, how did you get to do, because you have a very diverse, you're an actress too. So you have this very diverse background. How the heck did you become a Primal health coach from being an actress?
Yeah, total accident. What happened was when I arrived to LA many years ago, and I was in the ingenue category, the category of a leading lady, just based on how I look. And it's getting better now, but back then especially, every single, and still today, when you see leading ladies, they look like they're athletes, right? I mean, they look like they're in the gym all the time. They've got, and listen, I've worked in casting offices. I have heard casting directors on the phone talking to agents and go, she's at an 8, I need her at a 2. Okay. So this is just how it works. So at the time, I thought I was doing everything in the right way. Like, instead of going the bulimia, anorexia, Diet Coke and cigarette route and starving yourself, I went the workout every day, try to eat the way that I thought I was told what the paradigm was at the time. Now, at the time, and this was many years ago, like 13 years ago, first of all, there was no such thing as Paleo Primal. There weren't even any podcasts, guys. Okay. Like, there wasn't even a way to kind of find out the information that you can find out now. And so what happened is I was following conventional wisdom. The eat every 2-3 hours, the zone, the South Beach, keep your insulin steady. We now know that's the worst paradigm, but that's what I was on. And then I was also, in order to maintain glucose dependency that way, and we can get into it, but I was a high chronic cardio person. I was doing chronic cardio. I was, and I thought at the time, the thing is, I achieved the body. So I thought, a couple of things. I thought, one, either everyone else is struggling in here with food addictions and food obsessions, and they're struggling with willpower and suffering every 2-3 hours, and they're not talking about it. And that's just like part of this pain and gain to get to where you need to go. Or something's wrong with me. Maybe I've got a problem, because for most of my life, I cannot remember ever not being obsessed with food, thinking about food, eating a meal, already thinking about the next one, total sugar addict, food addict, even when I was fit. Okay. So I thought, clearly the quote diet I was following worked, right? I was getting away with it visually. I was not getting away with it internally. Okay. So things were going wrong internally. And on top of that, I was suffering mentally because I was not satiated. I was on that low fat, low carb paradigm, over exercising, and essentially I gave myself hypothyroidism. And a lot of people can do this. And why do we care? And the first thing all of your listeners need to know is everyone listening or watching this right now has a thyroid gland. If you do not have one, it was surgically removed. And if it was surgically removed, then you are on thyroid hormone replacement because you die otherwise. So why do we care about this gland? It's the master gland of the human body. It controls all of the regulation and production of sex hormones. It emits the only fat burning hormone in your body. Okay. And to highlight this, I want to share with people, if you were to go look up the only biologically active thyroid hormone that exists in this world in our bodies is called T3. If you were to look up T3, or the actual medical term liothyronine sodium, about 500 bodybuilding websites would show up. And you would go, well, that's weird. Well, it's not, because see what they do, and they shouldn't, this is dangerous, but what they do is in order to burn fat and shed as much fat as they can before a competition, they will jam themselves with T3 for about 6 to 8 weeks so that they burn all the fat that they can so they can go out there and look lean. Now, that's dumb. However, it goes to show you how effective and potent T3 is. So if you're overweight, likely you are either, if you're not doing anything diet and lifestyle wise that's affecting it, you probably have low T3 levels. So why do we care about this gland? It's the master gland, clearly, but the signals we send to it via diet, stress, exercise, sleep, all decide what it provides for us. Either it will downregulate and go, I'm not giving her any more of this fat burning hormone right now because she's under eating, aka starving. I'm also not going to give her any more of this production because she's running 40 miles a week, and to the body, that's perceived as she's running from danger. You see, so we always have to consider the primal paleo DNA built makeup of our body and what kind of messages are we sending? Because those messages ignite hormone cascades. Yeah.
So when we're doing that, like when it happened to you, what exactly were you signaling to your system, and why does the system downregulate T3 when it thinks it's perceiving stress? Like what?
Right.
Why would our bodies have done that as a hunter-gatherer?
Right. For a variety of reasons. So again, your thyroid is the metabolic controller. So if the primal perspective of your body perceives that you're in danger, okay, so what it's going to do is in danger moments, like it thinks you're running from something, it's going to upregulate cortisol, and that's going to be antagonistic to testosterone, blood sugar, and a whole bunch of other things, and thyroid. So if you continue on that, like running every day, or right, it's one thing to have short bursts. It's one thing to get scared really quick and be shaken up for a few minutes or go on a sprint. It's another to chronically kind of give these messages. And the other part of it is, she's stressed out and in danger, and now it's flooding my body with cortisol. That's inflammatory. Let's not give her any more wood on the fire. And T3 is like throwing gasoline on a fire. So your body's not going to want to throw any it's going to make you hypermetabolic when you're already in some crazy inflammatory state. And that could also be this. Let's say you get Lyme's disease. Any kind of infection, cancer, those things can shut down thyroid too, because your body's looking at other areas it needs to attend to with major inflammation, and it's going to downregulate, adding any more things that could ignite the inflammation. So these are lots of different messages, and it doesn't have to be always in the form of, it could be lack of sleep too that affects the adrenals.
Yeah,
it could be a stressful divorce. You could have a thyroid problem, a stressful divorce. You're not sleeping. You're stressed out. You got adrenaline and epinephrine running every time you're talking to a lawyer. Your ex-husband's an a-hole. All that kind of stress in one's life can absolutely contribute to thyroid problems for people that don't normally have them. And again, what's going on behind the scenes is your body's going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Right? Yeah. Cortisol's too high. She's stressed. She's running from something. She's in danger until she's okay. So that's why it's important to constantly send the messages to your body that you're okay. And we can do that through diet and lifestyle and, mental intention as well.
Do you see it triggering a lot in postpartum for women?
Absolutely. This happens all the time.
Stress? Yeah.
Well, it's not just because of stress. It's just like hormones get off too. And what happens is people can either swing hyper, overactive, or under after, and sometimes it happens after the third child. Yeah. Or the second child, like it's maybe not the first one, but any kind of brain fog, exhaustion, inability to deal with life and being overwhelmed should not last more than 6 to 8 weeks for a new mom. You know what I mean? Of course, You're going to get over that initial exhaustion, but if this keeps lingering, and I'm sure this is absolutely related to postpartum depression, and here's why. Because we have more T3 receptors in our brain than anywhere else, and that's why hypo patients often become extremely depressed. It's not that they're depressed because they are fat and their body's falling apart. That's part of it, but it's actually an actual brain thing, okay? So anyone with depression issues, you can go to a doctor, get put on Prozac, it'll last for 3 months, and then it won't work because you never dealt with the root of the problem. So check your thyroid. If you have cholesterol issues and your doctor's about to put you on statins, you better check your thyroid. If you are told you have high blood pressure and need to go on medication, you need to check your thyroid. It's all related to the thyroid. So you can go to doctors that continue to Band-Aid you for symptoms that pop up, or you can get to the root of almost every problem in our body.
Wow, that's a big statement, and I really appreciate hearing that, because I tell you, every single day in my practice, I have a woman that comes in saying, I'm tired, sometimes it's as bad as I'm losing my hair. I
Absolutely.
cannot lose weight. I eat like a rabbit. I exercise all the time, even though I'm exhausted. And I'm just getting heavier and heavier. And
That's
they go
me.
to the doctor checks their TSH, and they say, no, my thyroid's been checked. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I stayed sick for 2 years and got polycystic ovarian syndrome that I didn't have to have totally resolved once my thyroid was fixed because a doctor tested my TSH. It's a 1973 test that should never, ever, ever be assessed to gauge thyroid health ever. And if you are with a doctor that just tests your TSH, you run. You run because they're an idiot, they're a moron, they're uninformed, and they're not doing anything but going back to 30, 40-year-old outdated protocols. You don't want that doctor, you run. You also run from most endocrinologists. They are also trenched in ego and 30 to 40-year-old outdated protocols. And if anyone's testing the TSH or just the TSH and the T4, you're with the wrong doc. They don't know what the hell they're doing. End of story, period. That's it. If you're hearing me right now and you're going, wait a minute, and you look back at your blood results, there's a success story in my book, Kara Hahn, and I have a podcast with her. She suffered 2 miscarriages and for 10 years, and she was like a tall and skinny person, and she started to get fat. She kept going to her endocrinologist. He kept being like, you're fine. It's in your head. Maybe antidepressants. People think they're crazy because they listen to their doctors. It turns out after 10 years and 2 miscarriages and then a couple of years of just being depressed and miserable, she finds out through another doctor that she had been mistreated the whole entire time on the wrong medication, and then no one had ever even diagnosed her for Hashimoto's, which she had. Wow. And at that time, her immune system looked like that of a cancer patient who just went through chemo, okay? This is from an endocrinologist who's ego entrenched and goes, this is the only medication for you, this is all we do. And here she is thinking, I guess he must be right. 10 years. There's people that suffer for 20 years. I suffered and lost 6 years of my life. This is not worth wasting your life on. You get to A to Z as soon as you can, and that's why I wrote the book. Right. I had to, for the people that don't know, the reason I even wrote a book on it, and there is a functional primal doctor on my book, so you won't just hear it from me. There's a great Q&A in the back of my book. You will hear from a doctor why other doctors don't know what they're talking about, and you can show that to a doctor. Maybe they'll listen to another doctor. But at the end of the day, the reason I wrote this book is I couldn't find it when I was suffering. And why am I an expert? Because I actually cured myself twice. I dosed myself. I was my own doctor twice in 10 years. Now, I shouldn't have had to do that. That sucks. But a lot of patients are put there. I went through 25 to 50 doctors over 10 years. I got no help. They either hurt me. I spent $15,000 I didn't have running around to a bunch of idiot doctors. And at the end of the day, I had to take it into my own hands because I was falling apart. I went from 115 pounds to 160. My hair was falling out. I had horrible acne. I had perfect skin my whole life. I had a polyp and a fibroid in my uterus that I had to get removed because of this. I was extremely depressed. I was horrifically constipated. I had skin thickening, which happens when it feels like when you bend a leg, you drink a bottle of soy sauce. The list goes on and on. I detail about 30 of them in the book. Restless legs, heavy legs, sexual stuff. There are all sorts of symptoms, and they're all horrific. And the thing is that no one needs to suffer. No. So, but you have to step up because this is an epidemic. 60% of people are undiagnosed. 200 million people have this worldwide, 23 plus million Americans. I'm not sure how much up in Canada, but at the end of the day, you got to educate yourself because I didn't ask that first doctor either. Oh, you're just going to put me on the pill? Well, what's causing this? So you can get band-aided by a doctor or someone can give you a pill. And here's what you need to know. If you're listening right now and you've been on thyroid hormone and you still don't feel great, but your doctor's like, your thyroid's fine. You're probably on the wrong medication, the right type of medication. And then here is the other answer. It's probably, you can give someone all the thyroid hormones you want. They will backfire and they will not work and they can hurt you if you do not have the primordial baseline to accept, receive, and metabolize those hormones.
Yeah. Which that means all the time too. We were like, well, they just watch my levels and they don't get better, but they've given me more. And just so you know, in Canada, they've now, in British Columbia specifically, they've refused now. Doctors are not allowed to check for anything TSH unless there is an abnormal reading of TSH or the person has a tumor or goiter on their thyroid. Unless you pay out of pocket for it.
Okay, well, then guess what?
And
pay out of pocket.
And it's cheap. 50
This
bucks.
is worth the money, people.
Yeah.
This is, don't get missed. And so trusting the doctors is ridiculous at this point. And really the functional doctors that are doing the in-depth testing and time with you, they're the ones that don't take insurance and, often are more costly, and you do have to go out of pocket. How badly do you want to get better?
Yeah.
So here's the thing, even if you have a great doctor that's going to treat you right, and you think you can just get away with finding a great doctor who's going to just tell you what to do, you're wrong. It's not going to happen. You still have to play this part over here. You have to play this part over here. This part is patient compliance with supplements. Let's say you need to get your iron storage up, selenium levels, vitamin D. There are things that hypo patients are classically, deficient in. And so also too, you could be taking all these hormones, and what are you doing? Are you running 15 miles? Are you doing all these things that are then not making that work?
Right.
So when people look at the title of my book and they go, oh, the Paleo Thyroid Solution, I get it. The paleo part's the part where that's where you lose the weight from when you got fat. That's part of it. But here's the thing. Paleo Primal, it's not a gimmick. People think like the other diets that are out there, like South Beach and Zone, they're all there to manipulate our system, almost like the birth control pill, in a way in which our bodies are not meant to act. And when you do that, shit goes wrong. Okay. Let's be honest. It really does. So the same thing goes over here. All right. So Paleo Primal, the reason it's great for thyroid and great for thyroid hormone metabolism and fat burning, forget just for regular people without problems. It's great. The reason it's great, and the reason it's the only one that works in conjunction with how our thyroids are supposed to, is because it's the ultimate in adrenal management and the ultimate in blood glucose management. Because when you get fat adapted and you are primarily a fat burner and not a sugar burner, making that transition, getting into the paleo primal lifestyle, that gives you that baseline to receive, accept, and metabolize properly. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say you're a sugar burner. How do you know if you're a sugar burner? You know if you're a sugar burner if you can't go 4, 6, 8, 10, 24 hours without eating food and not have a mental hangry meltdown, freaking out in some kind of way. I've only had a cup of coffee this morning. I could go for the next 24 hours and not have a meltdown because I'm fat adapted. Because my body in those moments is not going to have a mental breakdown starving for glucose, because I'm not glucose dependent anymore. It's going to go to the fat on my body and start to use that to fuel me and start to use ketones. Okay. So I'm never suffering. When you are a sugar burner and you're up or down, let's say I have to eat every 4 hours. Okay, let's say you hit that 6th hour and you're really struggling. At that 6th hour, you know what's happening in your body? Your muscles are catabolizing. Your cortisol's spiking up because it's going, whoa, 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 either too high or too low. So you don't want these things to happen. We don't want to keep tapping and hitting the adrenals because they're going to be antagonistic to thyroid, testosterone, everything. So paleo primal lifestyle and how you conduct it properly, because people have misconceptions. They think it's a food list. And it's not. It is a carb paradigm. It's a high fat, moderate protein, low carb paradigm. And it does have to do with exercise. So usually people are missing a component. Like they're doing they got fat adapted and they're doing that right, but then they're still over exercising and going really into the glucose glycolytic state of working out, which by the way is going to deplete your glucose stores. Then after that workout and subsequent workouts, now you're back on the sugar burning train because you're sore and tired and hungry. Yeah. So you really want to stay in that fat burning zone, or we just say 180 minus our age, and try not to go too much above that heart rate unless we're doing a once or twice a week sprint session or a high intensity 20-minute workout. So that's the area too. So you'll talk to someone and they're doing everything right, but then they're running like 40 miles a week at a very high heart rate. And so you're not then going to be staying on that fat burning train. So when you switch over to become a fat burner, you get with the diet and lifestyle aligned with our genetics and our DNA and what it expects of us, then there are no problems.
Yeah.
There are no problems.
Can you talk a little bit because in the program, we offer paleo, keto, and autoimmune paleo.
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of speculation that hypothyroidism in 95% of cases is an autoimmune Hashimoto's. Do you agree with that?
I think it's like 30% of the population or something like that, or 30% of cases. I don't think 95. I'm not sure the percentage of cases that are Hashimoto's versus another form of hypothyroidism. But Hashimoto, it's worse. I mean, I think it's on the rise because of our diet and lifestyle. So Hashimoto's is a little bit of a different protocol. not with dosing or with thyroid hormone replacement, if that has to be the case. But here's how Hashimoto's works. It's a lot like type 1 diabetes. So in type 1 diabetes, the immune system makes a mistake and it attacks the pancreas as an enemy. And that's why eventually you need to go on insulin, because it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. The same thing happens with Hashimoto's. So, and what we know for sure is that grains trigger Hashimoto's antibodies, particularly grains with gluten. Yeah. So let's say you eat gluten, your immune system is going to make a mistake and it's going to think that is like thyroid tissue, or it's going to make an act and it's going to start attacking your thyroid. The more antibodies you have, the more that immune system's attacking the thyroid. A lot of doctors don't know that there's something you can do about the antibodies. Why do you want to do something about them? Because here's the thing, there's people listening right now probably that are on thyroid medication. Maybe they're doing great and they have Hashimoto's. That's fine. And every time they go get tested, let's say their Hashimoto's antibodies are at 100 and at 300, and the doctor goes, well, whatever, they have Hashimoto's, so of course they're going to have antibodies. No, you can do something about it. Now, a success story in my book as well, the same one who suffered for 10 years. When she found out about, because even at the time, I didn't know about the grains and Hashimoto's. And when I found out about it, I called her, she's a good friend. And I said, I'm so frightened for you because I know you're one of these people that will never give up pasta and oatmeal. But listen to this evidence. Please take a look at it. She was like, holy crap. She immediately went Paleo Primal, and she was a healthy eater anyway, but she was eating grains, didn't know. She went Paleo Primal. Her antibodies dropped from 300 to 25. She's never seen them that low in her life. Why do you want the antibodies low? Because if you're on medication, you might not feel the rise and the fall of the Hashimoto's antibodies, but you know what's happening? Antibodies equal inflammation, equal begetting more autoimmune, more inflammatory disorders. Antibodies are inflammation. You want to reduce the antibodies as much as you can. So that's another area where a lot of doctors, even thyroid doctors who are treating people properly, just don't know that through diet and lifestyle, you actually can achieve lowering the antibodies, and you want to. That's the goal with someone with Hashimoto's. Get those down to undetectable levels or really, really low. On the converse, if you're not on medication and you've just discovered you have Hashimoto's and you're not feeling great, you adopt a strict Paleo Primal protocol, you may avoid ever going on medication. And there's nothing wrong with being on medication. I take T3, and there's people that can live great long lives on thyroid medication. There is nothing wrong with that. But of course, everybody would rather just have their stuff working the way it should. Yeah. So if you want to try to stave off something Hashimoto's is actually one of the quickest and easiestly reversible things to kind of keep at bay. If you catch it early and you really nip it in the bud, it's possible. But so people need to start testing their antibodies, whether they feel good or not, and they need to start doing something about that. And that usually is with diet. It's just really cutting out gluten. Now there are corn glutens and other things. So in Paleo Primal, we just say, get rid of all the grains. They're inflammatory anyway, and they're gut disruptors. So forget, you eat a gluten-free cookie, there's still sugar and, probably rice and some other things in there. It's just, how badly do you want to get better? How quickly do you want to get better? You can have that piece of pizza. You can have a cheat. You can do that down the road. This is not a sentence for a lifetime of never having a real grain cupcake. It's just, how bad do you want to get better? So these things need to be eliminated, and it goes to show you that if you do have Hashimoto's in the long term, you're probably you can't cheat as much as someone else can with grains. That's all. So that's Hashimoto's. Sorry, that's a long one.
No, that's great. I love it. I love all of it. Because this is, like you said, it addresses everything that if somebody suspects any of these things, I really think that all of it should be tested. Your antibodies should be tested, T3, T4, everything.
Right. Now, I don't have Hashimoto's, but, I still might test for it once every couple of years, but once you get it initially tested, if you don't have it, and you have to get tested for both of the antibodies, because you could show present for one and not the other. And by the way, one is worse than the other. So I want to throw this out there. Yeah. I'm just going to rattle off right away. By the way, anyone, you don't even have to buy my book. You can contact me through the contact form on my website, elleruss.com. And if you're like, hey, where's the thyroid info? I will email you back a long list of how to find the right doctor. What are the blood tests? How do I prepare for them? Where do I go to find a doctor in my state? You don't need to buy my book to get a lot of free info to get you on the right path. And part of that, and I'll just rattle it off right now, the 6 main first order of business you think you might have an underactive thyroid. These tests are as follows: TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, and we do a ratio between the reverse T3 and the free T3, which we can calculate online afterwards, and they have to be done in the same test. And then you want to rule out the Hashimoto's antibodies, and there's two of them. One is TPO for thyroid peroxidase antibody. So TPO-AB is the test. And then there's thyroglobulin antibody, and that's TGAB as a test. Now, it's better to have the TPO. If you have the thyroglobulin, that one is considered to be a little bit worse in terms of what it could ignite for your future health. So it's even more important if you have both, or if you have that TG, you got to get on it, because you could feel good. But then again, and you know what? This goes to skinny fat. There are a lot of athletes out there who are insulin resistant. They look great. You might look at them on the street and go, damn, I wish I had his body. Wow, I wish I had her body. And they are an inflamed pre-diabetic mess, and you have no idea because you can't see it. So those people are, quote, getting away with it visually, but they are not getting away with it internally because they're still tapping the pancreas, tapping the insulin. And it doesn't matter that they keep burning it, right? So that's not the point. So you can get away as long as you can, like, oh, I'll eat 5 cupcakes and I'll work out extra 2 hours. You think you're getting away with it, but the response is still happening. You don't want that. So it's a really, like, if you think you're getting away with that type of protocol, it's going to catch up to you. You won't get away with it for very long.
No.
Yeah.
And so let's say somebody does show up with abnormal levels in these tests. Now, there's a lot of controversy over, everybody can agree that paleo seems to be a great diet for anybody with thyroid problems. There's a lot of controversy about the ketogenic diet and whether or not that's too low carb. And I've had clients that have had thyroid problems. They've gone to these strict keto diets where they're drinking butter, coffee, and MCT oil all day long and fat bombs, and their symptoms get worse. Their hair will start falling out more. They'll get more fatigued. So can you help us understand which one is better and where?
Let me clear this up. There's it is impossible that a ketogenic low-carb diet causes hypothyroidism. You and I would not be here today because population wouldn't have happened. People would not have brought pregnancies to full term because infertility happens with hypothyroidism, and our ancestors never ate more than 80 carbs a day, sometimes none. So how did they survive? Okay. Now, this is my and I did do a podcast with Mark Sisson on the Primal Blueprint podcast where we talk a little bit about this too, so you can kind of cross-reference. But here's the way that I think about it. Low carb does not cause thyroid problems, but there's a couple nuances here. Okay. Let's say you're a healthy person with a normal working thyroid. You don't have any hypo symptoms whatsoever. Okay, you're great, but you just decide to go to keto for whatever reason, health reasons, or you just want to try it. So you go ketogenic. Now, a couple things can happen. We might look, if we tested that person's thyroid levels, they might go down, but they feel fine because they've become more T3 efficient. It's the same thing that happens to you when you become fat adapted. You become calorically efficient. I eat so much less than I once did because my body's more efficient at it. The reason I'm on such a low dose of T3 versus a very high dose is because when I went paleo primal, everything was cleaned up underneath. And then I started to get hyper. I kept having to lower my medication because I got T3 efficient. So numbers don't always correspond to symptoms. Mark Sisson and Brad Kearns, who are both writers and from the Primal Blueprint, our company, experts, athletic, just legends.
They are.
They both had doctors tell them they thought they had a thyroid problem, based on the TSH, which is a dumb test you should never use alone. And they were like, we're concerned about your thyroid. And both of them are like, but I don't have any symptoms. You see what I'm saying? So it's not that you don't have to watch out for something. So there's that. There's the other thing. When you go keto, oftentimes people are so shocked by how it suppresses your appetite so incredibly, right? And that can be kind of something you get off on. It's kind of a fun thing, especially if you have been a food addict, right? Now, in that state, a lot of people can kind of accidentally starve themselves, which would cause that primal perspective. So when you're keto and your appetite is suppressed, you still have to make sure you're getting enough calories and stuff like that, and that you're getting enough satiation. It's okay to do a fast or starve for a few days, but you know what I'm saying. If it's chronic, or you're going to continue on that path. Now, if you're on thyroid hormone and you're feeling good, but your levels are great, and you want to go keto to try to zap that fat that you gained when you were hypo, and now then in that case, you would have to maybe at the 6-week mark and then again, maybe at 8 weeks or something like that, you'd want to check the thyroid levels, because you might need to lower your thyroid hormone, because now you've become more efficient. And now the dose that you were on before you went keto is a little bit too much. That's something people who are on thyroid hormone would have to watch and look out for, because that could happen. So here's the third part. There are no studies that show keto causes hypothyroidism, but here's the thing. Who are the people that go to keto? They're the people you're talking about. They're fat. They're already hypo. Something's already wrong, and now they're looking for this answer to zap the fat. That is coming from a disease state into just something that is a paradigm of eating that's not going to cure your disease state. It's going to probably make it worse. And you can't metabolically get into ketosis when you're hypothyroid. You just don't have the metabolic fire. That's why you keep getting fat. That's why no matter what you do, you eat a grape. You're like, how can I win here? Nothing's working, because your body has no T3. It has no fuel. It is metabolically inefficient. That's why you're freezing all the time, and your hands and feet are cold, and the hair is falling out, and you're accelerated aging, and you got wrinkles. I look better at 44 now than I did 13 years ago when I was a total hypothyroid mess, So of all the people that said keto causes a thyroid problem, where were they before they started keto? I'd love to see their blood work. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Because if you're coming from a troubled place already, think about all the people that are trying to be on diets are usually not people that have no weight problems. They're usually people that are suffering from something. So you can then make it worse. Because your body's like, wait, what? We're not prepared for this. And frankly, in order to do ketosis right, you have to develop the metabolic machinery first. You have to get fat adapted first before you get into ketosis if you want that to be smooth sailing. So if you're starting off from square zero being a sugar burner and you jump into ketosis, it's going to be a mess anyway, whether you're hypothyroid or not. You're going to have a lot of problems, and no one suggests that. And if you're curious about ketosis, then get Mark Sisson's new book coming out in literally like a few weeks called The Keto Reset Diet, because they go through here's a month of preparing yourself first. And then you have to basically take a test to see whether you can even move on to keto. You really have to self-check it, because so that's another mistake people make. They're jumping from being a sugar burner and they're fat. Here's the other thing. Most people who are hypothyroid become insulin resistant. This is another reason why the paradigm of Paleo Primal works, because there is nothing else that can reverse type 2 diabetes / prediabetes except for a low carb diet. So it's the only thing that does work anyway. But most people become insulin resistant. So now to get out of that, yeah, you would go low carb and keto. But if you're still hypothyroid, it's not going to work. It's really not going to work. Now, there are situations where, go ahead.
Better to go paleo for a period of time till you're starting to feel better, and then you could play around with the keto.
Right. And paleo is low carb. So here's the thing. Let's talk specific numbers. Paleo Primal is, if you are not a bricklayer or a professional Michael Jordan type of athlete, I mean, a real athlete, not I exercise 2 hours a day. I mean, 5, 6, real athlete.
It's your life.
You never eat more than 150 carbs a day. I mean, you can overdo it occasionally, but now if you're a woman and you're 5'2", like me, I'm pretty short, I really can't eat more than 80 or 100 can be too much for me. So where do you start? If you're a woman, start at 100 carbs total per day, and then you can go down from there and you can make adjustments. You probably have to lower the protein. A lot of people overeat the protein too. These are mistakes and things you learn along the way and becoming intuitive with this process. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense there.
Yes, that helps, just to have a little kind of a blueprint of, okay, start here. And I love that. Just start at 100 and then move your way down if need be.
Right. And also part of the getting, I agree with your suggestion. It's like, go paleo, wait till symptoms subside. But while you're paleo, meaning clean out all that junk, get grain free, start to try to get fat adapted or go down that train. And again, your body may not be, working with you well if you're hypothyroid. If you're hypothyroid, you likely have sugar addictions and carb cravings, because there's no thyroid hormone to provide energy. So the adrenal glands take over, bust out cortisol, makes you crave this stuff. It actually requires a little bit higher level of willpower with the eating when you're hypothyroid on your way to getting better. But you can at least start to clean stuff out. Okay. Even if you're still overeating broccoli or whatever, fine. But, or it could be fat, but at least you're cleaning out all the junky oils and the grains. And then you optimize nutrients. You get selenium, you get vitamin D, iron storage. try to look and fix all of the underlying causes of what screws up your thyroid, even including maybe you're not getting enough sleep or you're working out too much, etc. Maybe you're so stressed out and you're a negative person. Maybe you need an attitude adjustment. I mean, whatever it is.
True,
and then you wait, and then you can see and you can get retested. Oh, did this work? Did this not? 6 to 8 weeks of selenium and cleaning out your body. Look, I've seen someone do a 180 with Hashimoto's, no medication, didn't know she had Hashimoto's, total mess, had gotten fat. I watched my friend get fat, not care about working out, kind of dumb and listless and unmotivated. And I was worried about her. And I asked her, like, what's going on? We get her thyroid tested. She had Hashimoto's. She had no idea her whole life. And she had been eating a lot of gluten. And I just put her right on the strict Paleo Primal. We gave her some nutrients just that are simple thyroid supporters like selenium. And she needed to do her iron and B12 and some other stuff. 6 weeks, she was like, glowing, her hair. I mean, I'd never even seen her hair so floofy, and like she always had drab hair, and it was like, and her body, it's like she just deflated 10 or 15 pounds because of inflammation. And it's miraculous. So you can do this in 6 to 8 weeks if you hit it hardcore and you think you have. Now, sometimes if the hypothyroidism has gotten so bad and it's not kicking back in, you can always go on thyroid hormone for a while, then still clean up some underlying stuff. Maybe there's more to clean up. Maybe there's Epstein-Barr. Maybe there's an infection. Maybe there's whatever it is, okay? And then you can always try to go off it at some point. There are no rules about if you go on it, you're stuck on it forever. So that is something too. I don't want someone to suffer for a year trying to reverse something naturally. At that point, go on the thyroid hormones.
Totally. Yeah. And I say that too. And I know the doctors that I work with that do this, they usually do T3 therapy for just a few months and then they retest and see where their levels are at. And most people, that's
great.
enough. Yeah.
Which is great. And, but the bottom line is that anyone going through this, okay, you have to learn about it. Yeah, you have to. I didn't want to. It's the last thing I wanted to do was learn about this stuff. I hated science and math in school. I have a philosophy degree. I'm a comedian. I'm an actor. I have no interest. I was a comedy writer. I didn't want to write a nonfiction health book. But I tell you what, when I went Paleo Primal, and reduced my medication in half. And then actually I got off thyroid hormone for 5 months accidentally. And then now I'm just on like 12 micrograms of T3, which is very little. The experimentation was so worth it. There's no doubt in my mind. And when I made that connection, I was compelled to write this book.
Yeah.
Because I'd finally found something no one has found. No one's made this connection yet. It is the first of its kind. And there is a reason for it. Because before, many years ago, people would go, oh, you should write a book on this. And I was like, don't have anything to offer that someone hasn't already said. Until I went through a second bout of hypothyroidism called the reverse T3 problem, which is extremely even rarer and even less doctors know how to test for it. And I was on my own again. And that's when I was like, all right. And even after that, I still didn't necessarily want to write a book on it. It wasn't until Paleo Primal and what it did for my life and all the light bulbs went off with the science, but also with me. And so that's kind of how I discovered this. And
how do you feel about the temperature taking to find out if you do, like, just as a simple at-home
valid, very valid. I talk about it in my book and I detail it because some people go, I know how to take my temps. And you're like, actually you don't. And I know that sounds weird, but you really got to hold that thing under there for 7 to 10 minutes and you can't use a digital because they're not as reliable. So I go through this protocol in my book. You can do at-home testing with temperatures to gauge adrenal sufficiency and thyroid. Okay. This is like, you could do this at home with a $3 Geratherm thermometer from like a drugstore or Amazon. Why wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? And the protocols in my book, you can also look at them online. There's lots of resources for that. That is a perfect way to assess. And usually people who do have those issues, they also have the blood work to go along with it.
Yeah.
Like it's always reflective. If someone's freezing all the time and they're cold and their temperatures are low, it's reflective in their brain activity, in their mental wherewithal. And it's totally also seeable on a test.
Yeah.
Like I can just look at someone's results and know exactly how they're feeling. You know what I mean? Either way, because I've been there,
Yeah. Oh, I've had women take their temperature and they come back and I can't even believe how low I can't believe
I was 96 degrees the whole time I was hypothyroid, you guys. 96. I live in California. Even when it was hot, freezing.
Because it's supposed to be 98. Is that right?
98.6
98.6.
Fahrenheit, right? So Celsius, a different conversion, it's like 38, 39. So
Yeah.
98.6
Yeah.
in the afternoon is the classic. Now, if you're between 98.4 and 90, okay. But, and then in the morning, the basal temperature should be between like 97.7 and 98.2 or 97.8 to 98.3. If it's at the top of the range, you might have an overactive thyroid or you're taking too much thyroid. If you're waking up with 98.3 temp, I'm sorry, yes, 98.3 temp, that's a little bit too high. But
yeah.
anything below 97.8 or 97.7 on a consistent basis can absolutely be indicative. And then, like I said, if I were to take, when I was seriously hypothyroid, if I were to take my temperature in the afternoon, let's say it would have been 96 degrees.
Wow.
Okay, that's now here's the thing. We as humans have that. And this is what's great about this. The body is so elegant. It's so amazing. The reason us as humans have this average temperature is because we've got enzymatic process and other things that require not too hot, not too cold. It's like Goldilocks. The same thing goes with thyroid hormone. Too much, heart racing, possible heart attack, bulging eyes, pooping all the time, eating skinny, can't gain weight, that will backfire. Eventually that person will become fat because of the increased appetite and stuff like that. So an example of someone who had the atypical body of someone with hyperthyroidism would be the rapper Missy Elliott. If people remember her, she's a very large woman and always had been. She was untypical of someone with hyper. Or then underactive, right? Now I'm fat, sluggish, slow, puffy, bloat, and it's not too hot, not too cold. It's just right. You don't want to have too much thyroid hormone. Essentially, the idea is it's the same thing as what's the minimal effective dose for everything? What's the minimum effective dose of food to fuel me? What's the minimum effective dose of T3 to get me to be in the right place? And the other things people have to notice, and this is why you have to learn it yourself, because your doctor can't be with you all the time.
No.
They can't be with you every time. And so if you're in the middle of something and you're feeling like you're on too much or you're getting warm, then even if you're on thyroid hormone, then that's the time to go, let me take temps for 5 days.
Right.
And then maybe you reduce the medication yourself. There's a lot of home diagnostics here that you can help work with your doctor. The other thing too is sometimes people need a little bit of increase in the winter and a little bit of decrease in the summer. There are seasonal changes and people should be kind of up on that. If you're on thyroid hormone replacement, get tested twice a year. And it's usually good to get tested maybe fall, winter, and then spring, summer, and make those necessary adjustments. So this is something you can't just like take a pill for years and years and then never see your doctor and go whatever, and they're just taking tests. How are you feeling? And if you're not feeling awesome, there are tweaks you can make. Don't listen to a doctor that says, well, you're going to have to suffer. No, you're not going to suffer.
Yeah.
Right.
So before we run out of time here, where can we find this amazing book? I'm guessing Amazon, and I think off your website as well. I think you can order it, can't you?
You could, but Amazon.com is the best place to go because you can read reviews and, editorial reviews there too. It's very cheap. It's like, honestly, it's the cheapest, best thyroid book I've ever read. Amazon.com, it's at Barnes & Noble stores everywhere. It's featured prominently right now in the bookstore, so it should be like pretty visible. Yeah. And again, anyone can go to elleruss.com. Just contact me and go, hi, need the thyroid free info. Like you don't even have to tell me your story. And I will email you before you even read my book, here's how to get started. Because you don't want to wait any longer in this, even if it's to receive a book. Like I'd want you to start now on looking where to get tested, what you need to do. This really is all up to the patient, because a doctor is going to be like, great, here's your first dose of thyroid. Come back in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Nope. Because you as a patient should know better and go, no, I'm coming back in 3.5 weeks to see that I might need an increase. We're not going to let anything lapse. Right? You know what I'm saying? Because when you take thyroid hormone, for the people that don't know this, you don't take your optimal dose right away. It's something that has to kind of build up. So like you take an intro dose, then you kind of get tested 3-4 weeks later, see where you're at with symptoms and labs. Maybe you dose again, test, right? And you do that until you reach your optimal dose. A lot of people wait too long in between then because they're listening to the doctor. Don't count on a doctor to follow up with you and make you get in there to get tested. So my book is also about empowering the patient. There also are letters in there to employers and loved ones. This ruins relationships, marriages, people get fired. And again, you've got someone undiagnosed whose brain is messed up. Their emotions are screwed. They can't think. They can't process. Every doctor's telling them nothing's wrong with them. You can imagine how this really screws up relationships. The husband might be going, I didn't marry her. I don't know who she's become.
Yeah.
This has been 3-4 years now. This keeps going on and no one can seem to find anything wrong with her. Right. That's a problem. So I also wanted to address that in my book so that you could hand your book to your husband or your wife or to your boss and go, please understand what I'm going through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's blood work examples in there. There's before and after blood work. I teach you how to look at it. Yeah.
And I just wanted to announce that you were kind enough to contribute some books to the winner of our hormone challenge that's coming up. And we're going to have a couple copies of those to give away to the members, which I think is going to be key. I think that's amazing. And everyone knows now where to find you. Mm-hmm. And you also do private sessions as well with people. If people want the extra help, they can find you at elleruss.com. I think that's it. I think you and I could probably talk about this for the next 3 hours if we're not careful.
I could go on all day. There's a lot to it, but anyone listening, don't be daunted by it. If I was able to figure it out, if you have a logical brain, you might need to have a friend read the book with you to help you if your brain's not working right. And that's okay. But you'll learn this stuff and it becomes easy over time, but it's worth it because this is you. Yeah. And don't let anyone else dictate this, right?
Yeah. And I'll put all the links to your site and to the Amazon page so that people know where to find you. But thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate this talk. I think it was probably one of the most informative talks that I've done up to this point. So I really appreciate it. And I think it's going to help a lot of women that are suffering out there.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's disproportionately a women's disease. Unfortunately, 1 out of every women in their lifetime will get it. So likely someone or someone has got hypothyroidism right now, probably.
Yeah, guaranteed. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.